morning, everyone. Again, thank you for joining, everyone. And again, we will start with a short mindful breathing exercise to quiet our mind, watching the breath mindfully as you inhale and exhale, and being aware of that, simply watching and being aware. Then we can try to have a good intention, motivation for being here by listening, engage in discussion, reflection, contemplation. May all of this help us to have a more profound and deeper understanding of the ultimate nature of self and phenomena or emptiness. So with that wisdom realizing the emptiness, we can completely destroy all the affecting emotion, the disturbing emotion from the very root. So that we can find true inner lasting peace, happiness. And so that also we don't hurt and harm others because of negative emotion. Instead, become more benefit and help to others. And may it be often conditioned to actualize and achieve our own highest potential, the fully awakened state. State that's free from all the obscuration and have gathered all the positive inner qualities. Yes.
To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies, as many as all realms, atoms, in all aspects. With supreme faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagawan was dwelling on Masabulchir's mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagawan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there's no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Taya ta om gate gate pada gate pada sam gate bodhi soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagawan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagawan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagawan. Sajipu ki jushin me tok tramri rapingji ni degen padi sange jindu mi te huai Jokunam Dakshingla Choparsho Yidam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodan Soki Chonam Ha Janchu Bardu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chonen Gepe Sonam Ki Jola Penchir Sangye Drupar Shok Sangye Chodan Soki Chonam La Janchu Bardu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chonen Gipe Sonam Ki Jola Penshir Sangye Druparsho.
So we are on sections where the middle school, the Madhyamika, is negating the idea that the consciousness exists inherently. The view that is held by the mind-only school, while mind-only school reject that there is external objects that exist from its own side, because everything is projected by mind, everything's come from the mind at the same time. So therefore, they reject the inherent existence of the external objects, or external objects existing from its own side. At the same time, then they view the mind, that is the subjects from where everything comes, where everything appears. The mind itself is inherent nature, and so that has been refuted by the Nagarjuna, saying, not only the external objects do not exist inherently, and when you try to analyze, they cannot be found, but also the mind, same, equally same, with same reason. If you try to analyze and try to find what is the mind, where is the mind, and what is it, also just like external object, you cannot also find the mind. And so the idea, the view of that mind to exist inherently existing is wrong. So that, so I think more or less we are on that point. In terms of verse numbers, I think we finished verse number 29, and we are on 28. No, 20. We finished 29, and then we are on 30. The proponents of yogi practice assert, so that is the mind holy school, okay, the mantra. They assert that a purified mind, effected through the mastery of one's mind, and through Buddha revolution, its state. in the Jimba's translation, the Yogacharan says that when the mind is wholly tame, the mind pure and utterly transformed. And that is the object of self-recognition. So the mind holy school, refute or reject the existence of external object existing from its side, and where they propose everything come from the mind, appear from the minds, and by training that mind, taming or training that mind, then as you achieve the result, your mind pure, free from all the obscuration and completely transform, completely transform mind, So they propose, they assert the mind, what they call mind basis of all, or foundational mind. And that mind is that continue from now until we achieve enlightenment. And through taming and training that mind, we become transform that mind. So because they feel, the mind exists from its own side, and so therefore when you analyze, you should be able to find that mind. If you cannot find that mind, then you cannot assert that mind to exist from their point of view. How can you say mind exists when you analyze, you cannot find? And so therefore, they come with this idea of, in other schools, there's only 6 mind, 5 sensory perception and mental mind. But then before mind only school, then they come with this idea of 8 mind. Because even the sensory mind, when you go to deep sleep, when you have, pain, when you are in sudden meditative, then all these senses dissolve. Not only all these senses dissolve, even the 6 mental mind also dissolve. And so therefore, they feel there should be a mind that never dissolve, that continue, that carry all the imprint. And so then they come with this idea of 2 different minds, and the other mind is the mind basis of all. And that the mind basis of all, or alaya, or here I think that they translate foundational mind or something. That mind is that continue, that mind continued all the time, even when you're deep sleep is there, even you have, even you feel unconscious of pain, even that continue, even you are having that deep meditation, that will continue. And it is that mind that carry all the imprint, and we train that, and that eventually become tame and completely transformed and pure. They talk about that mind. And because they assert, that to exist, then it has to, when analyze, you have to found. So how can that mind be found? That the mind basis all. Okay, that but the 8 mind, that when they talk about 8 different mind, and that 8th one, the mind basis of all, or alaya, how do you prove that mind exists and established to exist? And then they talk about this object of recognition, as we talked last time, the mind can be other cognizing and self-cognizing. Okay, the mind which cognizing other is the mind. Let's say my perception, my eye perception, which cognize this item. Self-cognizer is the mind that cognize that mind, that perceiving that. That is what they come. In the same way here, that alaya, that mind, is the object of that self-cognizer. How can you establish that mind? By the self-cognizer mind that cognize that mind. Okay, so that is what they assert, or that is their view. Okay, and then Nagarjuna refute that. So in 31, so here he will refute both the idea of the mind basis of all, the eighth mind that exists from its own side or inherently, as well as the self-cognizer that cognize that mind, which is also inherently existing or existing its own side. And so here, if you analyze that mind, whether it's the self-cognizer or whether it is the mind basis of all, or any kind of mind, basically, it's made out of continuity. Consciousness or the mind is made of continuity. So when you talk about continuity, there is part of the past continuity, there's part of future continuity, there's part of present continuity. Okay? And so that which is past is normal. The part of the continuity of the past is already gone, is no more there. That which is yet to be is not obtained. The continuity of the futures, that is to manifest as an awareness, has not manifested or obtained at the moment. So also that do not exist. Past is already gone, is no more here. Future is yet to come, is no more here. And its abide, its locus is utterly transformed, And even so-called the present moment, even the so-called present moment is always transforming. It does not remain all the same. Ever changing, ever moving. It's not a permanent fix, It's always changing, transforming. So even in the moment of presence, there's a first moment. The first moment is already gone. Third moment is yet to come. And the middle moment, the present moment, the moment you say this is it, is gone. The moment you say it is gone, it's like if you see a running of the water, okay? Or this water. By the point you made this water, the water you are pointing, that part is already gone. Even though it feels like it's the same water because there is same continuity coming. For us, it's the same river. It's the same river I saw last week, last month. But actually, the water is not same. All the water we saw last week is maybe already in the oceans, or maybe sink into some other part of dirt or everywhere. So it is not the same, but to our eyes, it looks same because there's continuity. Same with the mind. Same with the mind. It's just like water is moving and continuity. And so the moment you say this is it, it's already gone. So how can there be such awareness in present? So therefore, there is Also present is when you try to pinpoint, even though you cannot find the present. So, you know, if you try to find with that kind of analysis, you cannot find within the continual past, you cannot find within the future, you cannot find within the present. And therefore, you cannot really find the consciousness, the awareness, whether it's the self-cognizer awareness, whether it's the mind basis of all any mind, you cannot, when you do that kind of analysis, that kind of ultimate analysis, you cannot pinpoint, and you cannot pinpoint and locate and say this is it. You cannot find it. Therefore, it can't be inherent existence. Therefore, it can't be inherent existence. So therefore, the idea that consciousness exists inherently is mistaken and wrong. So here Nagarjuna is saying. And that applies same to the time, because I think last time someone was asking about whether time is inherent existence. When we talk about time, you know, we can talk about past, present, future. Same analysis. Past is gone, future is yet to come. Present is made up of many moments. You know, year is made of months. Months is made of week. Week is made of days. Days are made of hours. Hours are made of minutes, milliminutes, and all like that. You know, so each of those milliminutes is not day. Each of those days is not week. Each of those week is not month. Each of those months is not year. Each of those not is, you know, so it is each of those parts, that make whatever that is, each of them are not that. So, you know, in same way, therefore, you know, also time cannot exist inherently. Another way of looking, Nagarjuna's way of looking, is, you know, past is gone, is no more there. Future is yet to come, is no more there. What is always present. And present cannot be present if there's no past and future. Do you get it? Everything is mutually interconnected. There can be only present on the basis of past and future. There can be only past on the basis of present and future. There can be only future on the basis of present and past. So present cannot exist by itself without depending on past and future. Past cannot exist by itself without depending on present. Future cannot exist as a future by itself without depending on present. How can it be future if there is no present? So therefore, even from that perspective, you know, how all of those moments, past, present, future, they all can exist. Past can exist as a past, future can exist as a future, present only in relation to depending on other parts. Without others, it cannot exist as a past, as a future, as a present by itself, without depending. Therefore, it can't be inherent existence because it is depending on other factors to exist as it is. You know, it cannot exist as it is by itself without depending the others. And so therefore, again, that is reason why even the time is empty of inherent existence. And I think he made that kind of argument or that kind of reasoning logic in his fundamental wisdom or root of the wisdom, that kind of analyze in relation to the time. Maybe we will do later. And in verse number 32, whatever it is, not what appears, whatever it appears as it is not so. Consciousness is default of selfhood, yet consciousness is no other base. So even in commentaries, it says it's not so clear, and even His Holiness, the commentary he was also reading, there's no clarity whether this is kind of the view of Mind Holy School or is a view of middle way school that is rejecting the Mind Holy School. So if we take from point of view, Mind Holy, from middle way school, whatever it appears is whatever it is not what appears, So even though all phenomena, including consciousness, are empty of inherent existence, but what appears to our mind is inherent existence. Do you get it? Even though all phenomena are empty of inherent existence, that is not what appears to our mind consciousness. Our mind conscience, it appears the opposite, the thing to exist inherently. So what it is not what appeared as to us. Okay, what it is all phenomena, including consciousness, empty of inherent existence. But that is not what appeared to our mind, empty of inherent existence, because it appears opposite of that. It appears inherent existence. Okay, whatever it appears, it's not so. Even to our mind, it appeared inherent existence, but that is not how things really exist. That's not the reality. Do you get it? What appears to our mind is inherent existence of the objects. Even though there is appearance, but that is not what our reality is. That it is not so. Because things do not exist inherently. Therefore, consciousness is devoid of self. Therefore, consciousness is empty or devoid of selfhood or inherent existence. Inherent existence. Therefore, consciousness is empty of inherent existence or truly existence. Yet consciousness has no other basis. So since consciousness is devoid of inherent existence, all the consciousness are devoid of inherent existence. Therefore, even the self-organizing consciousness or the mind basis of all consciousness, even they are empty of truly existence. Even those mind, when you try to analyze, it cannot be found. So if it cannot be found, then that consciousness has no other basis. It cannot be basis for other consciousness to arise from that. So what it is saying is, Mind Holy School says that mind basis of all that carry all the imprint, okay, that carry all the imprint, predispositions, that give rise to other consciousness, that imprint, that mind carrying that. Are we clear? Are we clear? Yeah, there is the Mind Holy Schools, as I mentioned, they believe there is the eighth mind, what they call mind basis for all, is the mind that carry all the imprint of our all consciousness, imprint. And with that imprint, give rise to other consciousness, like when I look at the object, that imprint give rise to my eye consciousness that is perceiving that. So that consciousness, the eighth consciousness, is the basis for other consciousness, from their point of view. But here, Nagarjuna is saying, when you analyze that the mind basis of all cannot be found, is empty of truly existing, inherently existing, it cannot be found. Therefore, if it cannot be found, how can that be basis of others' consciousness? So therefore, that is what this ed consciousness has no other base. So it cannot be basis for other consciousness, because that consciousness, the ed consciousness, do not exist. Even though you said that when you analyze, there is such consciousness, but if you use with different logic as it is used earlier, verses and so forth, then it cannot withstand such logic and reasoning, and therefore it cannot be ultimately existent, infinitely existent. So here again, it is giving another example, how everything do not have to come through the consciousness, So giving an example, because Mind Holy School is saying everything, the cup come through the mind, is a projection of the mind, appearance of the mind. You get it? The consciousness that perceive the cup and the cup, both of them are appearance of same imprint, so it comes from the mind, is the appearance of that imprint and so everything's coming from the mind in that way. So so here Nagarjuna said that is not the case, or that's not necessarily. Giving me example. By being close to the lodestone, iron objects swiftly move forward. When you have a magnet, magnet close to some kind of metals, other metal, it pulls. The magnet pulls it, it moves. But that magnet and that doesn't have the consciousness. Just because they move, it doesn't mean it has consciousness. It is not driven by the consciousness. There is some kind of energy, some kind of magnet that pulls and that makes something to move, It possesses no mind of its own, and it appears as it does. If you look, oh, it is moving. Someone who doesn't have idea of magnet and how they pull, oh, it might think, oh, it's moving by itself. They wouldn't understand there is something magnet that's pulling them. They think, oh, that matter is moving by itself. It appeared that way. It appears is moving by itself, as though there is some consciousness that is pulling them moving, but it's not. It's just certain magnet energy that is making that, So similarly, here's likewise the foundation of consciousness. So that is the eighth consciousness, the Mind Holy School saying. As I said, different translations, here foundation of consciousness. Sometimes it is translated mind basis of all, because everything comes from that mind. I think translated is alaya mind, so that appear to be real though it is false. So even though that eighth mind, foundational consciousness, even though it appear to exist truly or inherently from its own side, but it's a deception. It is a deception. It is a false. Even though it appears, doesn't mean that's a reality. Just like when a magnet pull that, when the magnet energy pull that metal, it seems the metal is moving by itself, but it's not. Do you get it? The metal is not moving by itself, it's pulled by that magnet. But even though it seems it's moving, in the same way, the appearance and the reality is not same. Appearance that is moving by itself. But the reality is there is some other energy, the magnet is that pulling it. is not moving by itself. Same way that such consciousness, the foundational consciousness, even though it appears, or any consciousness, it appears to exist truly or real or inherently, but even that is just appearance, that is not a reality. That is not a real. That is false appearance. That is deception appearance. That is mistaken appearance. That is not a reality, The reality is empty of truly existing, inherent existence is empty of existence by itself, from its own self, or by itself. In this way, it moves to and from and retains the three, realm of existence. So therefore, not only that foundational consciousness do not exist real or truly, but that foundational consciousness do not exist. That mind do not exist. Because if you try to find that mind, you cannot find. Whereas mind all is full, they assert that mind on the basis of by analyzing and finding from its own side, but from middle way school, when you analyze even that mind cannot exist. That mind do not even exist. If that mind do not exist, if that mind do not exist, then what is the thing that carry the imprint from the past, that move from one life to another life, from one realm to another realm, from one existence to another existence. Because from mind all is cool, it all with that foundational consciousness is the one that carry all the imprint. And because of that imprint, then, we move from one life to another life. Okay? And we move from one realm to another realms, among 6 realms. Or here, 3 realms, the desire realm, formless realms, So we move from one realm to another realms, If there is no consciousness, such consciousness that retain and have imprint, because such consciousness do not exist, then how is that possible? And so the middle way school, Nagarjuna will say, even though there's no consciousness, there is merely existing I. Merely existing I, and is that merely existing I that carry that imprint. And that merely existing I, carrying that imprint, is the one that moves from one realm to another realm. Goes from one realm to another realm. And from within those 6 realms, it is something that retains us in the samsara, within the inner of the 3 realms of existence, or from one life to another life within the samsara, is the imprint that is planted in the merely existing I. So therefore, to carry those imprints, you don't need to have foundational consciousness. If there is no foundational consciousness, it doesn't mean the imprint. There is nothing that carry the imprint. Do you get it? That is the argument they make, Because for the mind only school, if there is not that add consciousness, then they feel there's nothing that carry those imprints. And then the Nagarjuna said, you don't need to have that add consciousness. Merely label self is the one that carry all the consciousness. And so therefore you don't need, so that is where the arguments comes, or the debate, or different views about, yeah. And again, giving another example, similar to the magnet. Just as the ocean and the trees move about through, though they possess no mind, like when there's a wind, storm, the trees move, the oceans move, waves coming, going, big waves, small waves coming, always ocean being moved with the waves and so forth. The trees being moved with that. It appeared is moving by itself, but it's not by because of it is moving by itself. Because the wind, because the storm that's moving, not because there's consciousness. Even though it doesn't have consciousness, due to certain other conditions, forces, it moves. And it might look that it's moving by itself, but it's not moving by itself as having a consciousness, but it is due to other forces. Likewise, foundational consciousness too move about independent about the body, So here, sometimes we have to understand, we use same term, but it means totally different according to different contexts. The alaya, the mind basis of all, or here the translation, foundational consciousness, it can have many different meaning in different contexts. In some contexts, at the very beginning, in the mind holy school, it's talking about that eight consciousness. But sometime in the tantric texts, teachings, sometimes it refers to, their light mind. And sometimes in some others teachings, it refers to the emptiness. Sometimes it refers to the consciousness that is mere luminous and awareness. And that is called, in those cases, is called foundational consciousness or basis of all, because in terms of emptiness, the emptiness of basis of all. Not realizing emptiness, being ignorant emptiness creates samsara. When you have correct understanding of emptiness, it creates nirvana. So emptiness is the basis of all. Correct understanding, correct realization of that emptiness lead to nirvana, and incorrect understanding or misperceptions of that or not understanding that lead to samsara. In other words, also that is why sometimes emptiness also use same term in certain contexts. It doesn't, in that context, it doesn't mean the eight consciousness, even though the term is same. Sometimes it just refers to the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is mere luminous and awareness. That's the nature of the mind. It's merely luminous and awareness. And also that mind is basis of all, you know. That mind, when it is deluded by delusions, polluted by the delusion, obscuration, then samsara and suffering. When that mind is free from all the obscuration, all the delusions, then there's nirvana, fully enlightenment, ultimate happiness. So that mind is the basis for all. Same with clear light mind. If you talk from tantric point of view, then is the clear light mind, that continue, from the beginning of lifetime, and that will continue while you are in samsara, and while we're on the path, and while we are the enlightenment, and even after enlightenment, it will continue. And just so that clear light mind is basis of again samsara, nirvana, everything. So that is why that term mind foundational consciousness or the mind basis of alaya can mean different meaning depending on different context and different. So here His Holiness says, in these cases, it might mean more of, instead of the eight consciousness, it might mean more from tantric point of view, the clear light mind, because of relation to talking about the body. Likewise, foundational consciousness too move about independent of the body. And body here doesn't refer to this physical gross body. The body refers to a very subtle wind energy. In Tantric, they talk about, those more subtle mind, especially in highest yoga tantra. They talk about this more subtle mind, clear light mind, that ride on the more subtle wind energy. It is in some scripture they explain, that more subtle wind energy like the horse, and the mind is like the blind person who's riding, and wherever the horse go, you just ride and go together with that, that most subtle wind energy, and so that is for talking about that. Without that subtle wind energy, then consciousness cannot move, And that is why they talk about opening the chakra. When you open the chakras, then that allows that wind to flow in the central channel. And when that wind is able to flow in the central channel, then the mind that ride on that wind energy also is able to flow. And so therefore, so without that more subtle wind energies, that the clear light mind cannot move or cannot continue or move from one. So that is what here. Because again, the author, the Nagarjuna, most time he go on based on sutra, but sometimes he also go on tantric, because this whole commentary is based on one tantric, from the tantric text. At the very beginning we read prologue where it comes from Guya Samaja tantric root text. It's about certain verses he's coming from that commentary. So sometimes you see them going back and forth a little bit, So if it is considered that without the body, there is no consciousness, you must advance what it is that awareness, and that is the object of one's specific knowledge. And here, His Holiness is very, he cannot figure out, so he has no explanations commentary on this verse. So if you cannot, I don't think I can also, I can only kind of, one specific knowledge. Okay. Okay, here in Tibetan is self-recognizers. Yeah, because in Jimba's translation it is saying, if without body is though that there is no consciousness, they must now describe for us what a self-cognizer consciousness is like. So again, this is a because mind only school describe self-cognizers as something that cognize the mind itself. Okay, the mind that perceives the external object. There is the mind that perceives the other object, and then there is the mind that perceives itself. So that is what is cognizers. So if without body, if there's no consciousness, then how does the self-cognizer consciousness perceive consciousness? Because there's no consciousness, because there's no body. So maybe if we, I don't know, if we take like I'm just trying to make meaning of it. Let's say, whether this might be argument or not, I don't know. In terms of formless realms, okay? Formless realm, there is no physical matter. There's no form, physical matter. If there is no physical matter, there wouldn't be body. If there is no body, then here there wouldn't be consciousness, because consciousness is derived from the body. And if there's no consciousness, then what is the self-cognizer that perceives or that is aware of? And so therefore it cannot be a self-cognizer because there's no objects to cognize, because there's no objects, the consciousness to cognize, and because there's no body. So I think that might be the argument that could be making, so that is why, sometimes I like to go the translate a little back and forth, because sometimes this own specific knowledge, I'm not familiar with that translation. So sometimes I cannot make what he's talking about, and there are many words. Some words I'm more familiar with, vocabularies. I can see what he's talking about. But when I first saw that in this translation, anyway, I cannot. Next one, by calling a specific awareness of itself, you are asserting it to be an entity. Because here, again, some of the verses is Nagarjuna is refuting few things of the mind school views. Is refuting the eight consciousness. He said there is no need of that eight consciousness. And he's also refuting self-cognizers. He also said there's no need of that. So you see, many of the verses are refuting that. The foundational consciousness or the mind basis for all is refuting that. That is the eighth consciousness the mind always will come with. And self-cognizers. Okay, that consciousness. He's refuting both of them. In middle way school, they said there is no need of both those consciousness. In mind only school, they came with that idea because, as I mentioned before, when they analyze this, it has to be found, it has to be established. So therefore, they need something to establish something. To establish the cup exists, there need to be consciousness, valid cognizer that receive the cup. In order to establish there's a valid cognizer, that mind that receive that, then they come with self-cognizers. Because if there is another cognizer that receive, then it will be infinite, endless. Therefore, that there is problem with that. Therefore, there must be something self-cognizes, the consciousness that is cognizing the consciousness itself. Do you get it? That is why they come with that idea. Nagarjuna says you don't need that self-cognizer to establish that the violet cognizer consciousness receiving the cup. Just by having a cup, by having an object, you can establish there is a subject. By having a subject, you can establish there is an object. Do you get it? Dependent arising, mutually dependent arising. You don't need another consciousness to establish that consciousness exists. You can establish that consciousness to exist by establishing there's an object of that consciousness. Okay? Valid object. And you can establish there is a valid object by establishing there's a valid cognizer. So therefore, there's no need of self-cognizers. And so therefore, this self-cognizers, idea of self-cognizer, the of self-cognizer doesn't have really sustainable reason and logic to hold. Same is the eight consciousness. As I mentioned before, they come with this eight consciousness because they think there must be something that carry all the imprint. Do you get it? There must be something that carry all the imprint, all the karmic imprint. And the five sense consciousness and even mental consciousness are not stable. At a certain time they stop and they don't continue. So therefore they come. And the Nagarjuna said, you don't need to have this so-called eight consciousness, the alaya, because the merely self can carry all the karmic imprint. And that will be enough. The merely label self can carry. Therefore, there's no need of all this. Do you get the point? So first we have to understand why all these discussions are going back and forth, Why is Nagarjuna trying to refute that? And the mind of all this school, why they have to come with self-cognizers and eight consciousness, because for them, again, as I mentioned, if something exists, when you try to analyze, you have to find in something. You have to find there, and therefore, so then they find in self-cognizer, they find in the eight consciousness. But the Nagarjuna, you don't have to find for something to exist and something to function. Something to exist and something to function, you don't have to find when you do that analysis. So that is the where difference comes. Huge difference. On the basis of that huge difference, then there is all these different ideas come. In Nagarjuna, you don't have this. You don't have to come with all these different theories and different idea of self-cognizer and eight consciousness, all of that. And for them, they come because they feel they need there's something in order to establish something existing and to function that. So that is where. So by calling this specific awareness of self-cognizance of itself, exists from itself, you are asserting it to be entity. You are asserting, to exist its own entity, inherent existing. It has its own entity. Its own nature. And by stating it is this, you are asserting it to be powerless. And by stating that, this is the mind basis of all, that give, that give arise to, that carry the imprint, and that imprint give arise to different consciousness, samsara, nirvana, and all of that, then again, it is kind of, here he is saying, then with that, then it feel like you are asserting, it's a contradiction. Then it's a contradiction. Then that cannot be inherent existence. Then that cannot be inherent existence. So that cannot be inherent existence. And therefore, what you said is more powerful, this self-cognized mind that perceive the awareness, consciousness, that it has the power to establish that consciousness exists by perceiving that, but in a way, if it is inherent existence, then it cannot perceive, it becomes powerless. It cannot perceive something it is inherent existence, and it cannot perceive. It cannot perceive something that had not perceived before. It cannot, if it is something that had not perceived before, and then something comes and you perceive that, it means it's not inherent existence. Do you get it? If it's inherent existence, it will always be there. You don't need something to perceive that. You don't need the self-cognizer to perceive that consciousness, to establish that consciousness exists. And so therefore, that means, indirectly you are saying it doesn't have the power. If you say it's inherent existence, it has its own entity, then indirectly you are saying it doesn't have power to perceive the consciousness. Do you get it? Point making here? Are we connecting? Okay, I want to make sure. Okay. So if, as the Mind Holy School says, if that self-cognizing consciousness, if that is inherent existence, that's what they say, it is inherent existence, it has its own entity, an inherent existing entity. If you said that, on one side you said that, on other side you said that self-cognizer perceives the consciousness, and it's a contradiction, because that self-cognizer does not have the power to perceive that consciousness. It's a powerless, if you say it's inherent existence. If it does have power to perceive it, that then it's not inherent existence. Are we clear? Okay. So we will start with the last verse for today, 38. Having a certain oneself to help other suggestions learn one process, explain they always without either, So first, when you try to negate another view, so here, started with negating some of the earlier non-school views of permanent self, and then understanding that, and then, negating the idea of partless physical matter and partless consciousness that is asserted by some Buddhist school. And then also, negating the idea that, or the view that even though there is no external object that exists from its own self inherently, but there is a consciousness that exists inherently, the view of the mind always goes. So all of them kind of refute it, And so when you refute that, with that, you have with good understanding, how when you compare all different views and how that earlier views have some faults and cannot withstand certain reason and logics, that they have a fault in such views, and so you have to be very assertive in yourself in order to help to have that understanding of certain. If I'm confused, I'm not so sure, how can I make other people not confused? Or anyone, in order to help others not to confuse and have a certain, then you need to also have that a certain understanding yourself. So, and then to be able to present your view here, Middle Way School, your own view after negating those views by showing the faults, then you have to be able to show your own view without the fault of such contradictions with the reason and logic, and to be able to withstand such withstand the others' what was the others' negations of your view, to be able to withstand and present without being contradictions and without having all this reasoning logical problem, and that is the learn one. So those learn one process excellent, they're always without error of that. The error is that, not only you refute others, but you should be able to present your view correctly. A lot of time what we do is we refute other view, but you don't have your own view. That is the problem with everything now in this problem. Everyone is easy to point others' problems, individual level and collective level. But what is the solution for you? You have no solutions. Sometimes that is the worst things. I have seen in organizations and countries and individual level, some people always point others' problem. And people who have some wish to contribute, they get very demolized. And then they don't have solution. They don't have solutions, and people who are trying to make small difference, they might not be perfect, but then they also be demolished. And that is the problem. It's easy to find problem in someone, to point someone's problem. Individual, organization. Yes, that is the problem. But what is your solution to that? Do you have solution to that? If you come with solution and point the problem, then with that solution, we can solve the problem. It's great. You don't have solution, and whatever, even there is problem, maybe there's some benefit in that. And even that, then you break even that. And then it leads nowhere. And that is, of course, is, not exactly meaning of that, but to some extent, if we try to relate this verse in our everyday life, I think that is what we take. That is what we take. If you want to point someone's problem, you have to come solution how to fix that problem. And you can say, that is no. This is the solution. Practical, really solution is not just. And then then others also maybe then it is helpful for whether it's on individual level whether it's no. But sometimes, we only point the problem. We never come with the solutions, and that doesn't really help. Sometimes instead of helping, it makes things much more worse. No, not specific. I see in politics, I see in organizations, I see in individuals, a lot of them. The same, look in politics. One party, when another party is in a position, they come with all the problems, they point all the problems. And it's great, but they don't have a solution to that. They don't have a solution to how to fix it. When they are in power, they cannot fix it. Instead of focusing on the solution, how to fix it, you focus on just pointing the problems, And so here it is saying, to point someone's problem, negate someone's view, incorrect that, then you have to come with your own view correctly to withstand your solution to the problem and presenting your solution to that. And then I think it is more beneficial and helpful, and then it helps everyone to engage different views, different ideas. It helps everyone to be more wise or more broader, to have different views in that. Yeah, but when you don't have your solution, it's only pointing that sometimes it's not beneficial. Okay, so we'll have, would someone pass this? Something?
This is a minor thing, but it's a little worrisome. 31, the past is no more, this is Jinpa, and for its future, etc. The conception of time, of past, present, future, this argument does purport to be a universal statement of existence. And it's worrisome to me because there are many, subsequently, at that time, there wasn't much knowledge of the rest of the world, truly. But subsequently, there are many cultures who have very different conceptions of time. So I'm just wondering how this argument holds up in our century, given all these other points of view of existence. I mean, for example, the Yanomami, there was a famous book, I don't know, 30 so years ago, The Yaqui Way of Knowledge by Carlos Castaneda. It was a big popular book. And it ended, one of the volumes, discussing the way they viewed consciousness and existence, and it was a circle. And there was no specific point of view. It was all these different points. So using some of this as a foundation for all his arguments internally holds, but within the broader context of what we know about how mankind views the world in the different cultures, it's troublesome to me. So do you want to comment on that?
Of course, everyone has their own view and everyone can decide for themselves. It doesn't mean the Nagarjuna cannot come with his view or his idea of what this kind of analysis and that. Buddhism come with this idea, there's no creator God, and there are a lot of cultural, spiritual paths who believe in creator God. And there's nothing wrong with having those different views. For some, having a creator God is reality, truth for them. For some, like those who follow Buddhist, maybe they're not, that is not reality for them. So, and there is a similar view with everything. Everyone has a right to view what they think is correct, what they feel is right, what they feel is true. But it is for others individually to make different views, what make more sense. Just within the Buddhist school of thought, mind-only school thought is different than middle way school thought. Babasika and Sotandika view on many things is not same with Nagarjuna's view, not same with the mind-only schools. And they debate with Nagarjuna. They have their own point. They refute Nagarjuna's point of view. Nagarjuna refute them, and they have Nagarjuna says this is how things do not exist initially. They say this is how things exist inherently, and they have different views and different presentations. And it is for us individually to make our own conclusions, which schools of thought, which reasoning logics make more sense, which holds, which has less contradictions, and which has more contradictions. All of that, and finally, is individual. And so therefore, having many different thoughts, different school of thought is great because it helps people's mind to engage more and trying to see what one's from each point of view and trying to understand which one make more reasonable or logical, or which one make more sensible, or which one makes less contradictions, and all of that. So Nagarjuna said this is the view, but Asanga, mind-only school, he doesn't think this is the ultimate view. He thinks Nagarjuna is mistaken. So as other Buddhist schools thought, you follow Nagarjuna's views, Well, the question is, what is His Holiness view? His Holiness view followed Nagarjuna's view, and to do that, you have to study all four tenets, and see yourself what make more for His Holiness. He studied all different school of thought. He studied all four Buddhist school of thought in very detail. He also studied, some of the earlier school of thoughts. He also had a lot of discussion with different scientists from different area of that. And for him, through all that, he feels this is some Nagarjuna's view is something, it makes sense and more reasonable and more sense to him. No, even Buddha's, no, Buddha see true reality. Buddha doesn't see just one reality. Buddha see both reality. So it's not like that we human or ordinary beings see true reality and the Buddha doesn't true reality. Buddha see true reality because there is true reality. Yes. Yeah.
Nancy, I'm sorry to jump in here. Jane Jasper had a question about 45 minutes ago. May I read Jane's question next? Thumbs up, yes?
I just
Okay.
wanted to say,
All right.
perhaps this is an oversimplification, but if time is empty, then you have nirvana. If time is not empty, then you have samsara. Make your choice.
I think Mark made a very short but to the point. Okay, then Mary, can you read it?
Yes, Jane Jasper's question is a comment on verse 36. Jane wrote, why isn't body in this case also wind energy? Here, I'll let you get. So again, she said, why isn't body in this case also wind energy? And then she said, I wonder if perhaps this is referring to the seventh consciousnesses, manas, which designates the playa as I.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said, in His Holiness commentary, and I first also thought it is related with the same body like wind energy, but the kind of the point is making, then it becomes a little bit difficult, because if it is so considered that without body, there's no consciousness. So I was wondering whether that is a Madhyamika saying to the mind holy school. And I don't know, mind holy schools will say without a body, there is no consciousness. Move into dependent upon. So if it is considered that without body, there is no consciousness, okay. So that is where the what you call difficulty of whether that view is held by mind holy school. If they hold that school, why it came to that conclusions. Because I don't see how where it come if the mind holy school says there is a consciousness, if it is considered that without body there is no conscious. Yes, without body there is no consciousness. So then that will be more like a mind holy. That will be same with what you call if we keep with wind energies, then it will be same for the Madhyamika too, because without the wind energy, there will be the consciousness. So then that is where I have little problems. But I think if you take with the previous verse, then it does seem is more sensible to be this body, also wind energy. But then I don't see where the argument come from. What was the view of mind holy school, where they would. But it can be, as Jen says, it can be. It is just that that body can be a wind energy, because if you relate it with the verse number 35, it makes more sense. But problem with me in that is, why did that argument came, and what was the mind holy school view? How did that argument started, and how did it came the behind? Maybe they might have some view which says without that wind energy. There's no consciousness. And so that is where I cannot relate with what was their exactly view that led to this argument. So, but I think if you take from verse number 35, 36, I think it makes more sense to as Jane said, the wind energy. Okay, so I don't know whether I've made any clarity, but I think maybe, yeah. So I don't know.
Geshe, I'm sorry. Jane also wrote, she's thinking that manas arise from the alaya. That was the other comment she mentioned.
What?
That
Can you repeat?
manas arises from the alaya.
I don't know the manas. What is the manas? Maybe the mind consciousness. Okay. Manas. So I don't know exactly that word manas. That
Jane just wrote manas is deluded self-awareness.
Okay. So it must be that the seventh mind. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I think we will have a dedication today. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Gewadi nu dudak lama sangge dugyune jowachi kyang mahalupa Dei sala go parsho Chancho semcho rinpoche ma ke panam ke gyurjik ke wa nam pa me pa yang gong ne gong du pel warsho. And then we would cite His Holiness's. But Geshe wants to say something. I'm not sure. Oh no.
Yeah, His Holiness, long life prayer.
Yes.
Maybe we can have the Kangri Rawe.
Ganri, Rawe, Korwe.
Korwe, Shinkam, De,
Kam
Pendam,
dear,
Dewa,
Pendam,
Malu,
Dewa, Malu,
Malu,
Sen raising wa tenzing gatso yi. Jape site bardu tengyu chi.
Normally, I would like to recite that one, even though there are many different verses of his own long life, because this is something that is everyone knows, all the Tibetans know that in all different Buddhist community, Tibetan Buddhist community or lineage, they all have this same. So you will be familiar with that anywhere you go. With other, we use sometimes the two other ones that are not familiar with all by the old Tibetan Buddhists. And so I thought if we use that, then anywhere you go, you will recognize that, you will be able to engage with that. If you go to any Tibetan events, if they are reciting His Holiness prayers, if you go to any other Buddhist, other school, Tibetan Buddhist school, any other lineage, if they are reciting His Holiness, that will be the one. So I think maybe for that reason, I think I will prepare that so people know that and they're familiar with that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you,
Good
Geshe.
night.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you.